My fiancé announced at our engagement dinner. I should have married my ex. He was a real man. I raised my glass and said, then go find him. 48 hours later, she called sobbing after he told her she was just a backup option. When she showed up at my door, begging to talk, I, 32 male, had been with Rachel, 29, for 4 years. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party in downtown Chicago, and from that first conversation about terrible coffee and overpriced art galleries, everything felt easy. We traveled to Portugal together, supported each other through career changes, and talked about building a life that actually mattered. 6 months ago, I proposed at the same beach in Lake Michigan where we had our first weekend trip. She cried when she said yes. I believed we were ready. Last Tuesday evening, I was standing in the private dining room of Harlow's, the upscale restaurant where Rachel and I had our first anniversary dinner. 20 guests filled the warm, dimly lit space. Friends and family who had flown in from 3 different states or driven hours through terrible traffic to celebrate our engagement. I had arranged everything myself over the course of 2 weeks. The seasonal menu, the white orchid centerpieces, even the jazz playlist running softly through hidden speakers. My parents sat near the entrance, smiling as they watched Rachel greet people. Her mother was at the head table, adjusting the centerpiece for the 3rd time. Everyone seemed relaxed, happy, genuinely excited. Rachel wore a fitted black dress with thin straps, her dark hair pulled back into a sleek ponytail. She moved through the room with confidence, hugging guests, laughing at old stories, touching shoulders as she passed. I stood by the bar, holding a glass of Merlot, watching her work the room. She caught my eye once and smiled, but something in that smile felt distant, rehearsed. I told myself I was overthinking it. The evening was going exactly as planned. At 8:15, I tapped my glass with a fork. The room quieted instantly. I thanked everyone for coming, mentioned how much it meant to have them there, and said a few words about Rachel and the life we were building together. People raised their glasses, murmuring agreement. Rachel stood beside me, her hand resting lightly on my forearm. I thought she would add something brief, maybe thank everyone or share a quick memory. Instead, she stepped forward and took the microphone from the stand near the dessert table. I just want to say something real quick, she began. Her tone was casual, almost dismissive. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. I really do. But I have to be honest with all of you. Standing here, looking around at all these faces, I keep thinking about my ex, Derek. He was a real man, you know. He knew how to take charge, how to make me feel protected and desired. Connor is sweet, but sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice. Maybe I should have married Derek instead. The room froze. No one moved. My father's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. My mother's smile collapsed into something unrecognizable. Rachel's mother stared at her daughter with a look I had never seen before. Something between shock and deep shame. A few guests glanced at each other, clearly uncomfortable, unsure if this was some kind of tasteless joke. My best friend sitting near the window looked at me with wide eyes. I felt the heat rise in my chest, not from anger, but from pure disbelief. This was not a private conversation. This was not a moment of doubt whispered late at night in our bedroom. This was a public execution, delivered in front of everyone who mattered to us. Rachel looked at me, waiting for a reaction, expecting me to stumble, to defend myself, to beg her to reconsider. I did not shout. I did not argue. I set my glass down on the nearest table, the base making a soft clink against the polished wood. Then I picked it up again, raised it slightly, and spoke in a voice that carried clearly across the silent room. Then go find him. Her expression shifted. The confidence drained from her face like water from a cracked glass, replaced by confusion and something close to panic. She opened her mouth, about to say something, but I continued before she could. This engagement is over. Please leave. I turned to the guests, many of whom were still frozen in place. Thank you all for coming tonight. I am truly sorry the evening ended this way, but I hope you understand why I cannot continue. My voice did not shake. I meant every single word. Rachel stood there for a moment, her mouth slightly open, as if she expected me to take it back or soften the blow with a nervous laugh. When I did not, she grabbed her black purse from the chair and walked toward the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Her mother rose to follow her, but Rachel waved her off with a sharp gesture. The door closed behind her with a soft thud, and the room remained completely silent for another 10 seconds. I stayed at Harlow's for another 30 minutes. Guests approached me one by one, some offering quiet apologies, others expressing disbelief and outrage on my behalf. My father squeezed my shoulder and said nothing, which somehow meant everything. My mother asked if I was okay, her voice tight with emotion. I told her I would be. A few close friends lingered, offering to stay longer or take me out for a drink, but I thanked them and said I needed to be alone. By 9:15, the room was empty except for the staff clearing plates and folding napkins in uncomfortable silence. I drove home in complete silence, not even turning on the radio. My apartment felt too quiet when I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air felt stale. I poured a glass of cold water, sat on the couch, and stared at the blank television screen. My phone buzzed twice within 5 minutes. Both messages were from Rachel. The first said, "Can we talk? Please?" The second said, "I didn't mean it like that. You know I didn't." I did not respond. I turned off my phone completely and went to bed, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion finally took over. The next morning, I woke up at 6:30 and went for a long run through the neighborhood. The streets were empty, the air cool and crisp. I needed to move, to clear my head, to feel something other than the weight pressing down on my chest. When I returned 40 minutes later, sweating and exhausted, I checked my phone. 7 missed calls from Rachel, 3 voicemails. I listened to the first one. Her voice was shaky, almost pleading. "Connor, please. I messed up so badly. I was nervous, and I said something incredibly stupid. Just call me back. Please." I deleted it without listening to the others. At work that day, I kept my focus locked on tasks. I answered emails with clinical precision, attended 2 meetings, and avoided any personal conversations. A coworker named Daniel asked if I was okay during lunch. I told him I was fine, just tired. He did not push. By early afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Rachel's mother, Margaret. "Connor, I am so deeply sorry for what happened last night. Rachel is absolutely devastated. Please give her a chance to explain. She loves you." I read it twice, then set my phone face down on my desk and returned to work. That evening I went to the gym. I lifted weights until my arms burned, then ran on the treadmill for 30 minutes until my legs felt weak and unsteady. When I got home, I showered, made a simple dinner of pasta and vegetables, and sat on the couch with a book I had been meaning to finish. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a mutual friend, someone from college, asking if I wanted to talk about what happened. I declined politely and said I needed space. People respected that, at least for a while. By Thursday morning, I had not heard from Rachel for nearly 12 hours. I assumed she had finally accepted that I was not going to respond, that the door was closed. I was wrong. Friday afternoon, I was sitting in a budget review meeting when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I ignored it, keeping my attention on the spreadsheet projected on the wall. When the meeting ended 20 minutes later, I walked to the parking garage and checked the screen. 3 missed calls from Rachel, 1 new voicemail. I sat in the driver's seat of my car, staring at the dashboard, before finally pressing play. Her voice was different this time. Not pleading or defensive, but broken in a way I had never heard before. "Connor, I need to talk to you. Please. Something happened. I made a huge mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Just call me back. Please." I sat there for a full minute, staring at the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to delete the message, drive home, and move on with my evening. Another part of me, the part that had loved her for 4 years, felt a pull to at least hear what she had to say. Against my better judgment, I called her back. She answered on the first ring. "Connor." "What happened, Rachel?" She started crying immediately, her breath hitching between words. "I went to see Derek. Yesterday. I thought he would take me back. I thought he still cared about me, that maybe we could try again. But when I got there, when I told him what I said at the dinner, he laughed at me. He actually laughed, Connor. He said I was pathetic. He told me I was just a backup option for him, that he never really loved me. He said I should have stayed with you because at least you were dumb enough to put up with my nonsense." Her words came out in gasps, each sentence interrupted by sobs. I did not interrupt. I let her finish, my hand gripping the steering wheel tightly. I ruined everything. I ruined us. I am so sorry, Connor. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why I said those things. I just want to fix this, please. Please let me fix this. I leaned back in my seat, staring at the concrete ceiling of the parking garage. Rachel, you stood in front of our families and friends, people who love us, and told everyone you wished you had married someone else. You humiliated me in the worst way possible. And then the second I ended it, you went straight to him. You proved exactly what I thought in that moment. You didn't love me. You loved the idea of having a backup plan, someone safe and reliable while you fantasized about someone else. That's not true, she said, her voice cracking. I love you. I made a terrible mistake. I was scared about the wedding, about committing forever, and I panicked and said something horrible. But I love you, Connor. I really do. No, I said quietly, my voice steady. You loved the security I gave you. You loved knowing I would always be there, waiting patiently. But you didn't love me. Not the way I loved you. She did not respond. The line was silent except for the sound of her breathing and quiet crying. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, but it's not going to be with me. Goodbye, Rachel. I ended the call and sat in the car for another 10 minutes before driving home. Saturday morning, I was vacuuming my living room when someone knocked on my apartment door. I assumed it was a package delivery or maybe a neighbor. When I opened it, Rachel was standing in the hallway. Her eyes were red and swollen, her hair pulled into a messy bun. She wore gray sweatpants and an oversized navy hoodie. She looked smaller than I remembered, almost fragile. I know you told me to leave you alone, she said quickly, her words tumbling out. But I had to come here. I had to talk to you in person, face to face. Rachel, there's nothing left to say. We've said everything. Please, just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I stepped aside and let her in, immediately regretting it. She walked to the center of the living room and turned to face me. I stayed near the door, arms crossed, maintaining distance. I've been thinking about what you said on the phone, she began, her voice trembling. You were right about everything. I took you for granted. I always knew you would be there, so I never appreciated what that actually meant. And when I got scared about the wedding, about committing to forever, I panicked. I convinced myself that I made the wrong choice, that maybe I should have ended up with Derek instead. But I was lying to myself, Connor. I was so wrong. She paused, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. When I saw him again, when I actually sat across from him and looked him in the eye, I realized how wrong I was about everything. He didn't care about me. He never did. He was selfish and cruel, and I was just someone he kept around when it was convenient for him. You were the complete opposite of that. You were patient and kind, and you actually loved me for who I am, and I threw it all away for nothing. I did not move from my position near the door. You didn't throw it away in that one moment, Rachel. You threw it away the second you started comparing me to him in your mind. You threw it away every single time you looked at me and wondered if I was enough, if there was something better out there. That's not love. That's settling while keeping your options open. I wasn't settling, she said, her voice rising with desperation. I was scared. I was confused and stupid. But I wasn't settling for you, Connor. Then why did you say it? I asked, my voice hardening. Why did you stand in front of everyone we care about and say you should have married him? Why did you humiliate me like that if you weren't settling? She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. She had no answer, or at least not one that made sense. I deserve someone who doesn't have to convince themselves I'm enough, I said firmly. I deserve someone who knows it without question, without comparing me to every other option. That's what real love looks like. She started crying again, harder this time. I know you do. And I hate myself for making you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough, Connor. You were more than enough. I walked to the door and opened it, holding it wide. I think you should go now. She looked at me, her face streaked with tears, mascara smudged under her eyes. Connor, please, don't do this. Goodbye, Rachel. She stood there for a long moment, searching my face for any sign of weakness or hesitation. When she found none, she walked past me into the hallway without another word. I closed the door behind her and locked it, leaning against the wood for a moment before returning to cleaning. Over the next 10 days, Rachel tried everything she could think of. She sent texts at all hours, long paragraphs explaining her regret in painful detail, short messages asking if I was okay or if I needed anything, even a few that simply said, "I miss you so much." I did not respond to any of them. She called twice more, over the weekend, leaving voicemails that I deleted without listening. On Tuesday morning, she sent a massive bouquet of flowers to my office with a card that read, "I'm sorry for everything. Please give me another chance to prove I can be better." I gave the flowers to my coworker, Sarah, and threw the card in the recycling bin. Thursday afternoon, Rachel's mother called me directly. I answered out of respect for the years I had known her. She apologized profusely for her daughter's behavior, said Rachel was struggling emotionally and seeing a therapist, and asked if I would consider talking to her just one more time. I thanked her for calling and for always being kind to me, but I told her firmly that I had made my decision and it was final. The conversation ended politely, but I could hear the disappointment and sadness in her voice as we said goodbye. By the following Monday, the messages stopped completely. My phone stayed quiet throughout the day and evening. I assumed Rachel had finally accepted that it was truly over, that no amount of apologies or flowers would change my mind. I felt relieved, but also strangely empty. 4 years of my life had ended in a single evening, and now there was nothing left but silence and the task of rebuilding. Then on Wednesday afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. "This is Derek. I heard what happened at your engagement thing. Just wanted to say you dodged a serious bullet, man. She's crazy and exhausting. Good luck with whatever you do next." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling a mixture of disgust and pity. Then I blocked the number and deleted the conversation. 3 weeks after the engagement dinner, I met my friend Marcus for coffee at a small cafe near my apartment. We sat in a corner booth with large windows overlooking the street, and he asked how I was holding up. I told him the truth. I was angry at first, furious even, but now I just felt tired and emotionally drained. He nodded slowly and said that was completely normal after something like this. He asked if I had heard from Rachel recently. I told him about the messages, the calls, the flowers, the visit to my apartment. He shook his head in disbelief. "She doesn't get it," Marcus said, stirring his coffee. "She thinks she can fix this by apologizing enough times or sending enough flowers. But you can't fix public humiliation. You can't take back what she did in front of everyone." He was absolutely right. What Rachel said at that dinner was not a simple mistake or a slip of the tongue. It was a revelation of thoughts she had been carrying for weeks, maybe even months. The engagement dinner just gave her the courage or the recklessness to say it out loud. And once those words were spoken in front of our families and friends, there was no going back, no way to unsay them. I started focusing seriously on myself for the first time in years. I signed up for a weekend cooking class at a culinary school downtown, something I had been meaning to do for years but never made time for. I reconnected with old friends from college I had lost touch with during the relationship. I went to the gym 4 times a week, not to punish myself or work off anger, but because it made me feel strong and capable. I read books I had been putting off, watched movies without worrying about whether Rachel would enjoy them, and let myself breathe freely. One evening in early October, I was walking through Lincoln Park near my apartment when I saw a couple sitting on a wooden bench under a large oak tree. The woman was laughing at something the man had said, her head thrown back completely, totally unguarded and joyful. The man looked at her with a smile that was soft and genuine, not performing for anyone else. They were not checking their phones or worrying about appearances. They were just happy, completely present with each other. I realized in that moment that was exactly what I wanted. Not someone who looked at me and wondered if I was enough or compared me to past relationships. Not someone who kept one foot out the door just in case something supposedly better came along. I wanted someone who knew, without any question or doubt, that I was the person they wanted to be with. Someone who chose me every single day, not as a backup plan or safety net, but as their first choice. A month and a half after the engagement ended, on a cold November evening, I received one last message from Rachel. It was long and carefully written, clearly thought out over time, rather than sent in an emotional moment. She said she had been going to therapy twice a week, that she was working seriously on herself and her issues with commitment and self-worth, and that she finally understood why I could not forgive her. She thanked me genuinely for the 4 years we spent together, for the trips and memories and growth. She said she hoped I would find real happiness with someone who deserved me. The message ended with, "You deserve so much better than me and how I treated you. I hope you find someone who sees that every single day." I read the message twice, sitting on my couch with a cup of tea cooling in my hand. I did not feel anger or sadness anymore. I felt something close to closure, a sense of finality. I did not respond to the message. There was nothing left to say that had not already been said. Rachel had made her choice the moment she stood in front of our families and friends and told everyone I was not enough for her. She could apologize 1,000 times, send 1,000,000 flowers, but it would never change what happened. It would never erase the humiliation or the betrayal or the damage to my sense of self-worth. That evening, I sat quietly on my couch and thought seriously about the future. I thought about the kind of person I wanted to become, the kind of life I wanted to build for myself. I thought about the woman who would one day sit beside me, someone who would never make me question my worth or compare me to ghosts from her past. And for the first time in many weeks, I felt genuinely at peace with my decision. A full year passed. I moved to a new apartment in a better neighborhood, one with more natural light and a view of the park. I traveled to Iceland and Portugal, places I had always wanted to see but never made time for. I met new people through the cooking class and the gym, built stronger and more authentic friendships, and learned what it truly meant to value myself without needing external validation. One Saturday afternoon in late autumn, I was browsing in a bookstore near downtown when I ran into Rachel's mother, Margaret. She smiled warmly when she saw me, a genuine smile without awkwardness, and we talked for a few minutes near the fiction section. She told me Rachel had moved to Denver for a fresh start, that she was doing better emotionally and professionally, and that she had finally started letting go of the past and taking responsibility for her actions. I nodded and said I was genuinely glad to hear she was doing better. Before Margaret left, she looked at me directly and said something I will never forget. "You handled everything with such grace and dignity, Connor. Even when you had every right to be angry and cruel, you weren't. I always admired that about you, and I'm sorry my daughter couldn't see what she had until it was too late." I thanked her sincerely and we said a warm goodbye. As I walked out of the bookstore into the cool afternoon air, I thought about the engagement dinner one final time. I thought about the moment Rachel said those devastating words, the moment I raised my glass and chose myself, the moment I ended something that was slowly destroying my self-worth. It was the hardest decision I had ever made in my life, but it was also unquestionably the right one, because I deserved someone who saw me as more than a backup plan or a safe option. I deserved someone who knew, without any question or comparison, that I was enough exactly as I was. And I knew that one day, when the time was right, I would find her.